With traditional medicine, also called allopathic medicine, that's what most medical doctors practice these days. They want to chase after symptoms, usually with a chemical, like a drug. And so if you have a fever, they want to bring the fever down with a chemical. If you have high blood pressure, they want to decrease your blood pressure down to another level, whatever that may be. If you have low thyroid disease, they want to perk that up with a drug. Whatever's bothering you, they have a solution in the form of a drug. We live in a drug culture that's fueled by TV ads and magazine ads and everything. So you hear the talk to your doctor to see if blankety blank is right for you type ads. Now, functional medicine is different from allopathic medicine in that it asks the question, why? Why do you have these problems? In my opinion, nobody has a problem just because. There's always a hidden root cause that's driving these problems.
This is True Voice Unfiltered, the podcast where raw truth meets real transformation. I'm your host, Daria Ann, ghostwriter, content strategist, and holistic health warrior. No, I'm not a doctor, nurse, nutritionist, or any kind of medical professional, and this show does not dispense medical advice. I'm just an informed patient sharing what I've learned on my own healing journey. I also interview accomplished authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, and functional medicine practitioners who are transforming lives. If you're ready to break free from the sick care system, reclaim your health, and transform your life, you're in the right place. Let's get unfiltered. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 54 of True Voice Unfiltered. My guest today is Dr. Kevin Smith. He is a chiropractor and a functional medicine practitioner based out of Bethel Park, PA, near Pittsburgh. And wow, we had this amazing conversation. I learned a lot of new things today, even though we did talk about Hashimoto's and the thyroid, autoimmune conditions, because those are all things that he treats. He can do that in all 50 states. With his health coaching program. So you'll learn about that. But I also learned how a group of chiropractors once sued the AMA and won, which was great to hear. We talked about a lot of blood tests, including one called T3 uptake, which I had never heard of before. So that was really fascinating. We covered nutrition, lifestyle, all of the things, and all of the things that he treats. And what I love about Dr. Kevin Smith is that he is willing to work with other practitioners for the good of the patient. So where his expertise might end with a particular patient, he's willing to call in another doctor, another practitioner who is an expert in that particular area, all for the good of the patient. His website is metabolicsolutions.net. And we talked about the assessment, a free assessment that he offers there, where it takes 2 minutes, you fill it out, you get your results immediately. And if you so choose, you can start a relationship as a client or patient of Dr. Smith. Like I said, he works as a health coach, so you can speak to him over Zoom as I'm speaking right now. And you can work with him that way. You don't have to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Of course, he's also a chiropractor. So if you were seeking his chiropractic services, obviously you would need to be in the Pittsburgh area. But Dr. Kevin Smith is a functional medicine practitioner from Pittsburgh, PA. He's the founder and clinic director of Metabolic Solutions in Bethel Park. He specializes in the diagnosis and treatment of chronic health problems that have failed to be cured by traditional medical approaches. Dr. Smith has been in practice since 2001, and in that time, he has seen thousands of people regain their function, restore their health, overcome imbalances, preserve their independence, and decrease their reliance on medications. Now, we did talk about where medications do have their place, and I have said this before, and I said it in this interview. I made the distinction between a prescription like liothyronine, which is basically replacing the T3 that my body doesn't produce enough of, versus the commercials we see on television for these Band-Aid medications from Big Pharma. So we made a distinction there. I love that he is open to a lot of different ways to healing. As he says, there are many paths to healing. It's a very individualized thing, as I've discussed many times on this podcast, due to bio-individuality. So he treats each person as an individual, really gets to the root cause of what they need, develops a protocol, and helps them live healthier, happier lives. So without further delay, let's go talk to Dr. Kevin Smith. Dr. Kevin Smith, welcome to True Voice Unfiltered. I am so excited for our conversation today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, I always love to talk to functional medicine practitioners. But before we get into functional medicine and autoimmune and Hashimoto's and all the things I want to talk to you about today, tell us a little bit about your journey, Dr. Kevin, because you started out as a chiropractor. And I'm just curious, did you always have an interest in medicine? What made you go in that direction? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
I went to the Palmer College of Chiropractic in Davenport, Iowa, and I graduated from there in 2001. Seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And when I graduated, I moved back to Pittsburgh. I had a daughter, and I wanted her to be near her family, and so I hung out a shingle, and I started to help people that had been dealing with back pain, neck pain, headaches and migraines, automobile accidents, sports injuries, all the stuff that you typically associate a chiropractic. And every once in a while, people would come in with some weird, mysterious problem that I really couldn't identify, and I couldn't make heads or tails what to do with it. I mean, using the skills that I was given in school, I couldn't do anything. So people would come in with things like high blood pressure or gut problems, or they had brain issues, or they had heart palpitations. And so I was curious, like, what is going on here? And so I started to go to seminars and read books and learn and educate myself as much as I possibly could. And I took a whole lot of nutrition seminars first, and then I achieved a certificate called a diplomate of the American Board of Clinical Nutritionists. And that led me down another rabbit hole, and that was functional lab testing, testing blood, urine, stool, saliva, stuff like that. And led me down to another rabbit hole of functional medicine. And right now, 25 years into the future, that's about what I do. I 50% of what I do is functional medicine, and 50% of what I help people with is like things like peripheral neuropathy. I'm very, very interested in neurological issues. But as far as the functional medicine is concerned, my primary niche for that is hypothyroidism, and specifically Hashimoto's disease, and how the immune system affects the thyroid, and how your body is gonna make energy and stuff like that.
Well, and that is definitely, my area that I love to talk about as an optimized Hashimoto's patient who reached optimization with functional medicine. And
Mhm.
it seems to me, Dr. Kevin, and I want you to speak to this, but, once I kinda got on that track, it seemed like autoimmune was everywhere, like, just so I didn't realize, I guess, how many people had autoimmune conditions, how many people had Hashimoto's, how many people were walking around like I was for many years until I finally got the right help, with Hashimoto's and just not feeling good. Like, I had the fatigue, I didn't have the brain fog, but I had that sort of like that low level fatigue in the afternoon where I didn't wanna crash out on the couch, but I also didn't feel like myself either. My hair was thinning, but my symptoms kind of happened, like, over a period of time, which I think is one reason why it took me so long to figure out what was going on. But I've had my frustrations with the conventional model because it seems like the standard of care in the area of Hashimoto's is, "Oh, T4 only therapy," which doesn't work for 98% of the population. And really, when you go, and we're going to talk about this too, but when you go to your doctor on your insurance plan, you get what, 7 minutes? I mean, insurance dictates 7 minutes. Even if the doctor wants to delve more deeply into your issues, they just simply don't have the time because they have someone else interfering in the way that they practice medicine. So, I guess maybe a two-part question. Can we talk about autoimmune and why so many people seem to have autoimmune conditions? And then we can get specifically into Hashimoto's and comparing
Sure,
how functional medicine versus conventional medicine treats that. So,
sure. So, I wanna unpack this, uh, in reverse order.
sure.
First, I wanna talk about conventional medicine and compare it to functional medicine so your listeners understand really what the difference is. With traditional medicine, also called allopathic medicine, that's what most medical doctors practice these days. They want to chase after symptoms, usually with a chemical, like a drug. And so if you have a fever, they want to bring the fever down with a chemical. If you have high blood pressure, They want to decrease your blood pressure down to another level, whatever that may be. If you have low thyroid disease, they want to perk that up with a drug. So whatever's bothering you, they have a solution in the form of a drug. So we live in a drug culture that's fueled by TV ads and magazine ads and everything. So you hear the talk to your doctor to see if blankety blank is right for you type ads. Now, functional medicine is different from allopathic medicine in that it asks the question, why? Why do you have these problems? In my opinion, nobody has the problem just because. There's always a hidden root cause that's driving these problems, whether it's high blood pressure or it's constipation or it's diarrhea or whatever. There's always some kind of a underlying reason. So the functional medicine practitioner asks the question, why? Why do you have this issue? What's going on? And so they have to dig a little bit deeper. They have to order more tests. They want to look beyond the superficial that's in front of them. So when you go to the medical doctor and you mentioned about 7 minutes of face-to-face time, that's what I understand too. They are dictated to by the insurance companies. So no matter what is going on, the insurance companies, by the time you walk in the guy's office, your treatment plan has already been predetermined for you by an actuary that works for the insurance company that's works in a cubicle in another city. He's never met you. He's never looked at your chart. He's never looked at your labs or your x-rays or anything, but he is making critical clinical decision making uh, things for you without knowing a single thing about you, which is completely crazy. The medical doctors that I've talked to, and I'm friends with a lot of them, they are very frustrated by this because they feel that their hands are tied behind their back. They can't determine what's in the best interest for the patient. It's all based on what the insurance will pay. And what they're going to get is a very, very superficial, glossy veneer level care. They're not going to dig in to find out what's really behind the scenes and what's really going on to figure out what can I do to help this guy. They just want to suppress the symptom, mask it artificially and temporarily. And as soon as they stop taking their drugs, guess what's going to happen? I tell people all this all the
It comes
time.
back.
If you want to challenge what I'm having to say, stop taking your blood pressure medications for a couple days and see what happens.
Yep.
You know, so they don't. I don't really think that medicine really uh, has patients. They have customers for life, and
Yes.
they want you to be on those drugs forever. And they wanna add to it and add to it and add to it. The average person that comes in my office, they're on 7 different drugs on
Jeez.
average. The most I've ever seen in my life, a guy walked in my office, his drug list was a page and a half, single space typed. That's how many drugs he was taking.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's insane.
the doctors clearly aren't talking to each other.
Right.
Uh, this guy over here sees him for whatever, and he doesn't understand that he's also seeing these doctors over here that also prescribe drugs, and who knows what's going on with any kind of interactions or side effects. And he walked in like a zombie from taking all these drugs, and it was kind of heartbreaking. Oh,
Yeah, it destroys their quality of life. I mean,
it it really does. Yeah.
and that's another thing because you alluded to this. Like conventional medicine, to me, treats the body as isolated parts instead of looking at things as a whole. And just like you said, and then the doctors don't talk to each other, and now you've got all these medications interacting, and now the patient, like you said, is a zombie. And so it's so sad and it's unnecessary, in my opinion. When there's another way to go. But
Well, I mentioned that during some of my seminars, and I asked the audience, "Who here is taking at least 1 drug?" And the hands go up. And I'm like, "Who is taking 2 drugs?" A lot of hands go up. How about 3? How about 4? How about 5? Now, here's the challenge with this problem. When you're taking one drug, there's a lot of information on that drug from the time that's of inception until it's released by the FDA to the public. And on average, it takes about 13 years of data. Okay. There's all kinds of studies. They do a review of the literature. They do animal studies. They do in vitro studies, in vivo studies, cohort studies, leading up to random controlled double blind studies. And then it goes through 3 levels of FDA approval. And then if it's deemed to be safe and effective, then it's released to the public. Now, how much information occurs when you take drug 1 and drug 2, or you're in the world of polypharmacia, you're taking more than one drug? None. 0. There's no data
Wow.
whatsoever. They make their best guess, but there's always the possibility of a drug interaction or a drug reaction. My late mom, she was, in the hospital for something, and right before she left, the doctors gave her, a powerful antibiotic called doxycycline. And
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
they didn't test it on her first. They gave her a prescription, "Go get this filled when you get home." So she did, and she had a terrible reaction. She had to be taken by ambulance right back to the hospital until that cleared out of her system. And, of course, she got a bill. But there's
Of course.
all kinds of people that have side effects from medications and just like there's more than one way to cook an egg, there's more than one way to fix a health problem.
Yeah.
Drugs are one option, but it's not the only option available to people, especially if you have, like you do, autoimmune disease with Hashimoto's.
Yeah, and just to finish this point, I mean, when you were talking about like, we're bombarded with this programming. We were talking about sports before we started recording, and it's like you can't watch a baseball game, a football game, even I love HGTV, right? I can't watch House Hunters without being bombarded. Every freaking commercial is pharma. Oh, and now they have the ones where the people are singing and dancing, and then they go through the laundry list of side effects, and I think to myself, I'd rather deal with the condition than to,
Right,
than these
right.
side effects, like, oh, could, possible death, all these horrible things, and it's just crazy. So I think that our culture reinforces it, of course, pharma, um, and of course the insurance companies, and it's just this bad mix where and people are just constantly just accepting this program as normal. And I just want to say one other thing. Let me put on my tinfoil hat. Homeopathy up until the early 1900s was the norm in this country and probably everywhere in the world, until Rockefeller came in with petroleum and got us all in the allopathic model. So I just think it's important for people
Yeah.
to understand that what we call conventional medicine really isn't conventional. I mean, it is now, I guess, but it wasn't always. So
I don't know if your listeners fully understand the ramifications of what you just said, but that's very, very important. John D. Rockefeller was the owner of Standard Oil in the 19th century? Early on.
early
Yeah.
20,
Yeah, he's a
early 20th.
very,
Yeah.
very, very wealthy man, and
Yeah.
he learned that you could take his product and make medications. So he single-handedly tried to deem anything other than drugs as pure hogwash and quackery, and, the AMA has taken that mantle, and they have tried to, uh, contain and eliminate the threat, not for the best interests of the patient, but to try to protect their members because, every dollar that goes into a chiropractor's pocket is one less dollar that's going into a medical doctor's pocket, and they don't wanna deal with that.
Yeah.
So they launched a, campaign to contain and eliminate the chiropractic threat. They would take out full page magazine articles, back and cover stories, and, um, they forbade any of their members from ever referring to a chiropractor, and if you got caught, you would lose your hospital privileges, which is
It's
basically career suicide.
yeah.
And it got so bad that a bunch of chiropractors sued the AMA and won in federal court, and they were ordered to cease and desist the restriction of free trade because we live in a free market economy. You have the right to put out a shingle and help people in the best way that you know how. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent.
Well, but
You had
thank you for
mentioned about
sharing that. I didn't know that, Dr. Kevin. So no, but
yeah,
thank you for sharing that. I didn't know about the chiropractic and the lawsuit and all of that. So thank you. That was very interesting.
it's the lawsuit is called Wilk versus the AMA. If anybody wants to look that up,
I'm gonna look
and
it
yeah.
for
But
sure.
anyway, you had mentioned that you have Hashimoto's disease. I wanted to comment on that real quick. Inside the United States, the number one cause of hypothyroidism or low thyroid disease is Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
It affects 90% of everybody that has this problem. That's not everybody, but it's about 9 out of 10 people. If you figure there's probably about 30, 40 million Americans that have hypothyroidism, 90% of them are dealing with Hashimoto's disease. It's very easy to diagnose, but it remains misdiagnosed or undiagnosed by the medical doctors because you can't tell if a person has this problem just by doing a
Nope.
TSH test. You have to do specific antibody panels. And outside of the United States, the number one cause of hypothyroidism is iodine deficiency. We don't have that problem in the United States. Why? Because we put salt on everything and it's iodized salt. So we don't have that problem, but it's an autoimmune disease, and, it's very, very easy to detect, and it can be treated. I cannot cure it. Nobody can cure an autoimmune disease. Once you
Yes.
have it for the rest of your life. Anybody that says that they can cure an autoimmune disease is lying to you. Now, when it comes to autoimmune problems, um you can't flip a switch and turn it off like you can a light switch, but you can dim it down like you do with a chandelier, and you can put it into remission.
Yeah.
And that's the best hope that people can have is to put it completely into remission so it's no longer causing mischief and no longer symptomatic. And that's the best thing that you can hope to do. And some of the things that cause this issue is problems absorbing food in your gut caused by leaky gut syndrome that causes problems spinning up your immune system. And one of the problems with there is that it's caused primarily because the food industry
Yeah.
monkeys around with foods and
Yep.
they increase the amount of gluten in breads and pastas and all kinds of grain products, and that tears up your gut.
Yep.
They used to think that only people that had celiac disease were affected by this. I don't have celiac disease. I have what's called non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which means that even though I don't have celiac problems, I get very sick if I consume a lot of gluten.
That's
It's very,
yeah.
very common.
Yeah, and in my case, if I eat gluten, it's going to trigger an autoimmune response eventually, because it's isn't gluten a thyroid mimicker? So if you take in gluten, somebody with Hashimoto's like me takes that in, the little soldiers, little antibodies are going to come out and attack the gluten and then go attack the thyroid again because they look so similar. That's what I've been told by practitioners that I've worked with. And so that's
Yeah.
one reason why I avoid gluten completely. The other point I want to make about the food industry too, though, while we're on this topic, is that they also make things hyper palatable. So because, getting well involves a lot of different things, and I want to talk about that too because we all have bio individuality. So the combination of things that works for me may not work for another person with Hashimoto's. They may need to tweak things a little bit. So, but I think in
Right.
general, we all should be eating real food. I mean, I think we could all agree. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Like, we consider this normal that we have all these like processed, ultra processed foods when you go to the supermarket, And, like, people have just accepted that, but the body hasn't evolved that way. The body still wants real food. Can you talk about that a little bit, Dr. Kevin?
Yeah. I'm trying to think about how to unpack this. First of all, when you have a problem absorbing foods, uh, the the cell wall of your small intestine are called enterocytes. And when you have intestinal permeability problems or leaky gut, the enterocytes start to break apart and open up like elevator doors opening up. And they're bound together by these little things called tight junctions. And when they break and they fail and the cells open up, the particles of food can pass through in between the cells directly into your bloodstream. And there could be two protein groups called dipeptides, or three protein groups called tripeptides, four protein groups, five, up to 17, 20,
Wow. Yeah.
whatever. So the body doesn't really understand what this is. It doesn't look like food. And so when it goes into the bloodstream, the body tries to protect you in the best way that it knows how. And it thinks that it's like an invading pathogen, like a bacteria or a parasite. And so it sets off this cascade of to the immune system sets off a cascade to identify and attack this invading pathogen that's what it thinks it is, and so it spins up your body's immune system. While it does that, the blood-brain barrier, which protects your brain, bad chemicals like mercury and cadmium and lead from getting inside your brain start to become porous, and they start to allow bad things into the central nervous system that can cause mood problems. It can cause cognition problems. It can cause learning difficulties. It can cause memory loss. It can cause behavioral problems, all kinds of stuff. And at the same time, the lung fields have a barrier there too. The the, um, the pulmonary barrier, and so that can cause respiratory issues. So this can cause problems in your gut, your brain, and your lung fields. So and the other thing about autoimmunity is that if it's picking on kids over here, he's kind of like a schoolyard bully. If he's picking on kids over here, he's probably picking on kids in other places too. So it's
Yeah.
very, very common for people to have multiple sites of involvement, such as the thyroid, the skin, the brain, the gut, um, the joints, and it's very, very common for a person that has one area of involvement to develop other areas of involvement too. Medical researchers have identified over 100 different types of autoimmune diseases. It depends on what tissues are involved. So if the site of involvement is the synovial joints of your hands, that's called rheumatoid arthritis. If it affects the brain, that's called multiple sclerosis. If it affects the lung fields, that's called sclerosis. If it's affect the thyroid gland, that's Hashimoto's. If
Yeah.
it's the large intestine, that's called Crohn's disease.
Yes.
If it attacks the villi in the small intestine, that's called celiac disease. So it depends on which tissues are involved is how it's named. And, so you have to be careful with, um like you said, there's so many people that have autoimmune problems. You wondered, were they just not aware of this, or is this just undiagnosed or missed back in the old days? Um,
Yeah.
People that have you've probably seen people lose their hair. Uh,
Alopecia, right? Isn't it the
exactly.
autoimmune? Yeah, my late brother had that at one
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
yeah. So it can affect all kinds of parts of your body, and, So what was the driving factor? The immune system is regulated heavily by inflammation. And inflammation, a large part of that is what you're eating.
Right.
So as you said earlier, if you consume a lot of heavily processed foods, it's not lending too well to your issues. Um, I think that people need to learn how to eat good
Yeah.
quality foods that's not been tampered with and not been monkeyed with and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there's so many things. And the other thing I want to touch on too, Dr. Kevin, is I think also just environmental and even personal care products that we use. Because I know, thank goodness, like back in 2002, even before, probably before I developed Hashimoto's and got optimized, but back in 2002, I discovered natural progesterone cream, which resolved a problem that conventional medicine could never resolve for me. But the company that manufactured, I'm not going to say their name, but they also were very into like clean personal care products. And that's when I learned about all these fake estrogens that are in things like shampoo, body lotion, makeup. How much of a factor does that play, do you think, in autoimmune?
Well, as far as thyroid is concerned, estrogens have a very big effect on your body's ability to transport the thyroid hormone to your cells so that they can be used to drive the cell's mechanism. Every single cell in your whole body has a receptor site on the cell wall for thyroid hormone. And thyroid hormone acts like an accelerator pedal
Yeah.
in a car. So when you step on the gas, the car's going to speed up. When you take your foot off the gas, the car's going to either slow down or stop, right? So if we take it back to the body for a second, if it's the neurons in the brain that are being affected, if you have hypothyroidism that's affecting your brain, that's affecting the neurons, you can't think correctly. You have brain fog.
Yep.
You have all the stuff that I mentioned before. By the way, I was trying to think of the word sarcoidosis. That's autoimmune disease of the lungs. But anyway, if it's the gut, if it affects the gut, if hypothyroidism, you would expect to see diarrhea,
Yeah.
constipation, either ping ponging back and forth between the two. If it affects the heart, you would expect racing your heart to race or a heart to slow down. Or if
Yeah.
it affects the connective tissues, it could cause your hair to fall out in clumps in the sink, the loss of the outer one third of the eyebrow,
Yeah. I had
your
that at one time. Yeah.
your
Yeah.
nails, either your fingers and your toes get cracked and
Yeah.
weak and brittle.
Yes.
Maybe
Hmm.
you have abnormal menses. Maybe you have infertility. So if you're a woman of childbearing years and you want to start a family and you can't
Yeah.
conceive because of your thyroid's off, that's something that most doctors completely overlook. Can be very
Oh, yeah.
frustrating for people that want to make a family for themselves.
No,
So
it's true.
it can cause insomnia, problems falling
Mhm.
asleep, problems staying asleep,
Mhm.
which affects your mood. It affects your cognition and memory. It affects your job performance.
Yeah.
When you're at work and you're trying to concentrate and do a good job at something, but you had a really bad night's sleep the day before, trace it all the way back to the origin, starts with thyroid health. So
Yes.
if that's the case, we got to clean that up.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Kevin, let's talk about something that's very important. And this is what people with Hashimoto's don't do well, and that's convert T4 to T3. So T4 is like the inactive form of the thyroid hormone, right? And our cells have receptors, as you mentioned, for the thyroid hormone, but it's specifically T3, correct? Which is the active form of the thyroid that controls things like your metabolism, all the things you just mentioned, um, body temperature, heart rate, all of those things. But let's talk about what that process looks like in the body, because I've had some other guests compare that to, a really difficult marathon. It's a difficult process for the body, and maybe talk about how that works and why these things interfere with it, and why people may need also T3 as a
So
supplement.
7% of your thyroid gland produces T3. 97% is T4. So that's the majority of the thyroid hormone produced by your thyroid gland in your neck is T4. But T4 is biologically inert. It's inactive. It doesn't do much. So the body tries to reattach this. Now, T4 is named because it has four iodines attached to it. T3 is named because it has three iodines attached to it. I know it's rocket science, right? But what the body does is it tries to convert T4 into T3 by clipping off an iodine molecule. And it does this in one of two places. The first place is the liver. So the T4 goes into the liver. It's treated by an enzyme in the liver. 60% of T4 instantly becomes C3 in the liver.
Okay.
20% becomes reverse T3, which is waste,
Right.
just gets thrown away. And 20% becomes T3 sulfate and T3 acetyl sulfate. And that chemical then goes into your gut where it's treated by bacteria and hydrogen peroxide, and then it becomes T3 in your gut. So your body is able to recapture 60% of T4 into T3 first in your liver, and then another 20% of it is converted into T3 in your gut.
Okay.
So in order for this to mechanism to work right, you have to have a healthy brain because everything starts in the brain. You have to have a healthy thyroid gland. You have to have a healthy liver,
Yes.
and you have to have a healthy gut. But the story doesn't stop there. The body tries to take thyroid hormone and deliver it right to your cells to be used as to energize the cells. And most thyroid hormone is kind of lazy. It doesn't want to just go about by itself. It wants a
Uh,
ride. And so the ride
uh,
is being done through a carrier protein, and that carrier protein convert takes the thyroid all the way to your to your cells where it gets dropped off and it does its job. When the thyroid hormone is not bound to that carrier protein, that's called free. So if you have free T4 that is not bound by the carrier proteins, and the same thing with free T3. The majority of it, like 98% of it is bound to the proteins, but if it's not bound, it's free. So how does this relate to what you were talking about before? The carrier protein is regulated primarily by your estrogens in your body. So if you are consuming a lot of cosmetics and a lot of types of things that women and gals use all the time, that is going to cause a spike in your estrogen levels, and you're not going to be able to bind thyroid hormone to that. And that's picked up by a test that I run called a T3 uptake test. T3 uptake test will tell you how well your body is able to transmit bound thyroid hormone to your cells, and it's usually disrupted by excessive estrogens.
wow. Thank you for tying that all together. Really. Now, I've never heard of a T3 uptake test. Now, I usually get, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, and the thyroid antibodies, which I want to talk about too, because there's two different types. But that's interesting. I've never heard of a T3 uptake
So
test.
when medical doctors order thyroid tests for people, they're going to order a TSH. If
Mhm.
you ask nicely and say pretty please with sugar on top, they'll
Yeah,
order a free T3. That's it. That's all you're going to get.
that's it. Yep.
Now, I ordered 10 different thyroid tests because I want to look at the entire metabolic pathway and see where the breakdowns could be occurring. Is it in the thyroid gland? Is it in the brain and the pituitary gland? Is it in the liver? Is it in the gut? Is it some of these carrier proteins that we talked about before? And what's going on with that? So, if I can figure out where the breakdown is occurring, you have a much greater chance of fixing the problem rather than just giving them a pill, kicking them out the door, and giving them the very bare basic uh, workup you can. The insurance companies, they don't care about you. They don't care about your
They
health.
don't.
They don't care about anything. They care about their shareholders, and they do just enough not to get sued.
Yep.
And what they do is they call that the standard of care. I don't do the standard of care. I do exceptional care. So I want to look at all the different things that's going on behind the scenes and figure out where the breakdown could be going on and deliver that.
I love it. I love it. So now I'm going to flip this around and talk about the patient side of this equation when we're dealing with functional medicine, because this is different from going to the doctor on your insurance plan and just taking a prescription, because patient participation is required. Because we were talking about food, we're talking about all these other and environmental things. So how do you work with your patients where it's not just maybe you're giving them replacement? I don't know if I'm on liothyronine and NP thyroid, in combination, but beyond replacing what the body doesn't convert, what are some other things that you tell your patients that they need to do in order to keep these symptoms away?
I would say that the first thing is I'm not anti-drug. I'm not anti-physician. I believe that there's a time and a place for all healing. There's a
Right.
time and a place for drugs. There's a time and a place for surgery, for chiropractic care, for physical therapy, all kinds of stuff. We all have our roles to play. Now, some people need to be on thyroid hormone, but the statistics don't lie. Math doesn't lie. 17% of everybody out there gets better on hormone replacement therapy.
So much.
17%. That means that 83% don't get better.
Hmm.
So, obviously, we're missing a component. We're missing a big piece of the puzzle. If it's not thyroid hormone replacement, what else could it be? And so there's a lot of different things to this. There's nutrition, there's hydration, there's sleep, there's exercise, there's managing your nerve system through chiropractic care, there's meditation and making sure that you're managing your stress correctly. So if you do all that stuff, you have the highest chance of having a positive outcome, not just by ignoring everything outside of drugs, but incorporating medication. So I sometimes will have to refer out to a medical doctor because it's not in the scope of my license to deal with drugs. I want to have somebody else deal with that. I want to deal with the other stuff. I want to help them with stress management, with lifestyle modifications, with supplementation, with all kinds of stuff. You had mentioned, I think, bioidentical hormone you're taking.
Yeah, I do take bioidentical progesterone, uh,
I see,
estradiol.
I don't deal with it. That's like a nurse practitioner's job
Yeah,
or like an
yeah,
endocrinologist or somebody like that. So I need to work with people that are willing to work with me. I
yeah.
think that my job is in the best interest of you and patients. I don't care about politics and tradition and money and all that nonsense out there. I just want what's the best interest of the patient.
I love it. No, I love it, and this is what I love about this type of medicine is it's educational and it's individualized for all the reasons you just stated, and the fact that you are willing to work with other colleagues and say, "Hey, here's where my expertise ends, and I need, this patient needs something from this other practitioner." I mean, that just shows that you are there for the right reasons to actually serve the best interest of the patients, and I wanna add one more thing about insurance companies. They actually incentivize their employees to deny patients care, deny the test that the
Yeah.
doctor thinks they should have and all of that. So I wanted to make that point too with people. So, when you work with
That's a great
somebody.
point. That's a
Yeah,
great point. I mean, their job is to collect premiums and deny care.
that's it.
Yeah. That's
Absolutely.
and that's why they have more money than anybody. They're
Yeah.
incredibly wealthy.
Well, I have a my late Aunt Emma used to say, you have your health, you have your wealth. And that's how I feel about this. I feel like this is an investment to work with a practitioner like you where you're actually going to get to the root cause. You're going to learn about the lifestyle changes you need to make. And really, it puts the patient in control. Like, that's what I love about it. And I want to make one other point, too. I don't consider, for me, like thyroid replacement to me is not in the same category as like a band aid medication. Because to me, I mean, for me, it does work. So I guess I'm in that 17%. But I also do the food, the food, the strength training, getting sunshine, all the other things, right? Using clean products. So it's not just that I take thyroid replacement and call it a day. I
It's
mean,
a combination of stuff, yeah.
yeah, and it is, and I just don't consider thyroid replacement as, the stuff we see on the pharma commercials where it's just masking things. At least the replacement is coming from an animal, a cow or a pig, right? And it's natural, natural desiccated thyroid. I know liothyronine is made in a lab, but I'm able to tolerate that well. So I just feel like even though it's a prescription, to me it's in a different class than these things like, all the stuff we see on television that they're promoting that just really address symptoms and they're not really getting to the root cause of the problem.
I
So,
would agree with that. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are not even being educated about the choices that are available to them, and, they have
yes,
a great relationship with their medical doctor, and they trust the guy completely, but he may not be doing what's in their best interests.
right. The other thing I want to talk about too are supplements because you brought those up. And I think it's so important for people to work with a practitioner like you because I see people buying supplements because they see an Instagram influencer talking about this or that. And you really just like, thyroid replacement, right? You want to work with somebody who knows what they're doing because maybe you don't need that supplement, but maybe there's something else. You're just wasting your money, or maybe you could even be doing harm without even knowing it. Because I think supplements should be targeted based on your blood work, just based on working with someone who's actually investigating what's going on. Can you
I
talk to that?
agree.
Speak to that a little? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, when I work with supplements, I do that to do exactly that, to supplement a healthy diet. You can't go to McDonald's
Yeah.
6 days a week and then biggie size your Lipitor. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
That was a joke, by the way.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to supplements, there are 4 classifications, 4 different levels of products that are available to people as consumers. Level 1 would be stuff that you find at the dollar store or at Walmart or at one of those big box stores like Sam's Club or, Costco. There's a very good reason that they're so inexpensive
Yes.
because they're formulated with the cheapest possible raw materials you can possibly find, and they've been sitting on a pallet for 20 years. And so they're just oxidized, and they're just not very good for you. I would say that if you're just gonna poop out a vitamin at the end of the day, it didn't do your body very much good, right?
Right. Exactly.
Level level 2 is what you can find at a pharmacy, at, CVS or Walgreens or like your local supermarket, pharmacy. They're generally better made with better raw materials than the stuff at Walmart, so they can do you a better job getting into your blood, doing a physiological, uh, uh, whatever you need. And
Yeah.
then level 3 is better than the stuff at Walmart. Level 3 would be stuff at GNC or Vitamin World or stuff that you typically order from Amazon.com. They much better than the dollar store, the Walmart stuff, and it does a good job, but I think you can do better than that. Level 4 are professional strength supplements. Professional strength supplements are typically not, accessible to the lay public. You have to get them from a licensed healthcare professional, whether it's a medical doctor, a physical therapist, or a chiropractor. And level 4 is backed by research. They do real human clinical trials, and they compare them against, pharmaceuticals, and they publish that research
Wow.
in medical journals. And the second thing is that independent companies come in there and independently test the product to be pure. There's no heavy metal contaminants, biological contaminants, mold, yeast, funguses, none of that stuff. There's no mercury if it's a fish oil, and so you're gonna get something that's very safe. That's what I recommend to people
Yeah.
is level 4 supplements, and by the way, they're priced about the same as GNC.
Yeah.
It's not that much more money. It's about
Yeah.
the same. I
100% agree
think
with
that
you.
I think that there's a time and a place to save a dollar or 2, but when it comes to your health, that's not the right thing. Comparing, like a vitamin from Walmart versus a professional strength supplement, it's like comparing a hamburger from McDonald's versus a filet mignon from Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
I agree.
Technically, they're both meat, but that's where
Right.
the similarities end,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
what you pay for. There's a
Yes, you do.
reason that Mercedes charges so much money because these cars are engineered to last a million miles,
Yeah.
you know? You ever see those old Mercedeses from the '70s and '60s still on the road today? You
Yeah.
you never see an
True.
old Ford Pinto on the road today, thank God.
That's so true. That is so true. No, 100% agree with everything you just said. And then beyond like having the level 4 quality, I also think work with a practitioner because you don't need everything. You target
Right.
what you need for your body because why waste money if you don't need a supplement? Um,
So there are certain things that are under the wellness umbrella, that things like multivitamins or fish oils or probiotics, stuff like that. That's you don't really need to delve into a ton of lab testing to just
yeah.
round off what you need. But when it comes to understanding, there are certain supplements that are going to help you decrease inflammation. There are certain
Yes.
supplements that are gonna boost certain micronutrients, and, that with a good quality diet is gonna be a great one-two punch for people.
Yes. I just want to mention one supplement that one of many that I take that I believe studies have been done that shows it does prevent cancer. I think these studies were done in Croatia, but black cumin seed oil, I take a high quality black cumin seed oil to support the immune system. And I've been, gosh, for a couple years now and working really well. So
That's
that's
awesome.
one of several that I take. And I will admit, like sometimes I do get supplement fatigue, but I just gotten into such a routine with it that it's just like brushing my teeth every day, and it's
Right.
like just take them. You feel good, and I think when things start working, it just inspires you to keep going. Like it's like once you feel great, you want to keep feeling great. Therefore, you want to keep those habits that are helping you feel great, whatever it is
Right.
for you, whatever combination it is of supplements and lifestyle, nutrition. Um, and I mean, I'm just so glad I got back into lifting weights consistently because not only is it good for you, but I find it's very empowering. And especially as you get older, it just would feel good. I think about, gosh, if I'm ever out in a public place and somebody falls or something happens, I'd love to be able to help that person. I'd love to be strong enough to help that person. And I think especially for women, it's really important, to start to really lift heavy things. And I was told, really from the beginning when I got into functional medicine with Hashimoto's, like, stop being a cardio queen. This is not helping you because I used to do like these 5 mile, high impact aerobics programs. And now I really focus more on the strength training and in between Pilates and stretching and things like that. And
Great.
just the whole combination has been really great. But Dr. Kevin, I want to get back to you. So how can people work with you? I know you can serve people nationwide. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
So my health coaching program, uh, what I start people off doing is, assessing where they're at. So we look at their medical history, we do some questionnaires, metabolic questionnaires, neurotransmitter questionnaires, and you fill all that stuff out on your phone or on a computer, and then you send it to me and I review it and find out where you're at. So for people that want to work with me or learn about what I do and ask questions, my website is metabolicsolutions.net. So, if you go to don't go to metabolicsolutions.com, that's somebody else, but
Mm.
metabolicsolutions.net, I have a metabolic health assessment. It's completely free on the If you go to metabolicsolutions.net, there's going to be a menu bar at the very top. And if you click on one of them and you scroll down, you'll see it says metabolic health assessment. And you click on that, and it takes about 2 minutes to do. It's completely free, and you'll get your results sent to you to your email immediately about where you're at. Whether you have a mild problem, is it a moderate issue, or is it a severe issue, and what to do about it specifically. So go to metabolicsolutions.net, look for the metabolic health assessment quiz, and take that. And it's about 2 minutes long.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And then you go from there, and then you can do these calls
Exactly.
like we're doing now, like over Zoom or over, the
Yeah.
computer, and can.
So if you have a question that you want to ask me about whatever, there's a contact page, and you can, yeah, you fill it out, tell me about your issues, and I'll get back to you pretty quick. Right.
Oh, that's
But
awesome. And of course, I'll put all the links in the show description so people can find you. And lastly, I just want to mention you have a book coming out.
yeah,
Uh, Tell us a little bit about that. Why did you decide to write a book, and what was that process like?
the book is called Why Am I Still Sick? And it talks about a struggle that a lot of people have with chronic issues taking over their life. And it talks about the stuff that we talked about today, like the differences between allopathic or traditional healthcare versus a functional approach. And it talks about things like anemias, uh, blood sugar dysregulation, cortisol problems, sex hormones, estrogens, progesterone, testosterone. Remember, boys and girls make both, and they have to be in the
Yes.
right amount for your
Yes.
gender and for your age. Chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, um, GI problems,
Mhm.
food sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, stealth infections, and of course, autoimmunity. And it talks about the way that I look at these issues, how I diagnose them, and so we can get you a better you and a brighter
Love it.
tomorrow.
And when can we look forward to the book being out?
Hopefully
Is a
soon
time
is at
frame?
the publisher right now, but hopefully soon.
All right.
And
Awesome.
anybody that's hearing this podcast, I'll send you a free copy. Just write to me, send me your email address, and I'll send you a copy.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And Dr. Kevin, you have to come back when the book is out. I would love to bring you back. And as you were speaking, I'm like, oh my gosh, there are so many topics that I could bring you back that we could just do a deep dive on, like everything you just mentioned. So I hope you will consider that, because that would be awesome.
That would be my pleasure.
I love that you explain things so well, and just in ways that the average person can understand. So I really appreciate that. So Dr. Kevin Smith, thank you so much for joining me today, and much success with everything and your new book. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care.
Hi, I'm Dr. Liz. I just want to tell you how amazing and easy it was to work with Daria on my book. You see, I've had a book for a while, been sitting on my desk, sitting on my computer. Maybe you might be able to relate to that. And I didn't know what to do, how to take it to the next step, how to make it look polished and edited and easy and useful for my readers. Met with Daria. We had some great conversations. She learned my voice, my goal, my style, and she was able to edit and give me feedback on how to make my message clearer, more focused, polished, and it worked. I have a book. In fact, I have a book and a workbook that she's edited for me and guided me along the pathway. So if you're maybe a little bit like me, that you have a book or you have an idea and you haven't known where to take it, how to take it to the next stage, reach out to Daria. She's a game changer and she's really easy to work with and takes great pride in her work as well. So join me in the published author arena. Reach out to Daria. I'm Dr. Liz.